you can find a path that has ease and effortlessness. Imagine if the rule was not no pain, no gain. That works for a muscle, but does it work for forward movement towards a goal? It doesn't have to. You can change that to anything you want. No joy, no gain. Back to this idea of this bottom-up alignment, you gain this sense of ownership, and that brings a great deal of sustainability, right? When you have people in the organization or parts of yourself that have really bought into where you're going, you can sustain forward movement and change a lot longer because everyone's bought in. And they've taken pride in what they're doing. Hey everybody, Jeff here. Before we get started, if you're getting value from the podcast, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For those of you listening on podcast apps, don't forget to rate and review. Your support really helps the show reach more people, and for that, I am truly grateful. Now let's dive in. Welcome to The Point with Jeff Spikes. Hello and welcome to The Point. Today's another exciting day in the world of self-improvement, self-advancement, and learning to be of service and get all the things you want in this world, right? There's a mission and a vision that's been put in you, that was put in you when you were made and when you were brought here. You have gifts and natural senses and natural ways of being that are just yours. Clifton Strengths proves that you're more than 1 in a million unique. And you're unique, and what makes you unique is how you approach succeeding, how you approach doing things, your perception, and the decisions you make, the choices you make. Those are the things that make you who you are. And only you can show up and be you. So the encouragement and the excitement is about you being authentically you, showing up as yourself, and really leveraging what it is that's great about you. And reduce the amount of comparison, reduce the amount of mirroring and trying to do the way that everyone else does things. Find your way of getting the things done that everyone else also needs to do. And when you're working together with others, your unique approach will help make things better, faster, smoother, and easier. And acknowledging that in ourselves and others is key to advancing and really looking at what the whole quantum field is all about, looking at what utilizing all the resources that we have available to us is all about. Change is happening faster than we can even see it. Experiencing it, we're going to have to catch up. And if we keep thinking like our best tool is a filing cabinet, then we're not going to be able to advance. We're going to be left behind. Here comes the episode today for you, having been considering what this mid-year looks like. We're well into August. We're looking at we're rounding the corner. We're midpoint of this quarter and really looking at what the rest of the year might look like. You've gotten clear on the goals and objectives that you've been able to achieve, and you know exactly where you stand. And now it's time to look at what maybe you can get. What considerations could we make? And could I help you open up into your mindset so that you can think and consider something maybe you haven't considered that would help you put more on the table or get stuff back on the table that you'd taken off, or just simply feel great about what it is you're getting done. And if you're over exceeding or if you're just nailing your targets, what is it that would help you be even more effective in how you continue to move forward? Because the idea here is to have a baseline. In Quantum Strengths, you'll learn to create this baseline that you can grow from. You'll learn how to and lean into practicing having a greater vision and increasing the size and the breadth and the depth of that vision so that it really meets what can be done in you eternally, not just what's done in you in the physical world today. So what is the impact of your life going to be? And then you get to raise up all areas of life and relax and just keep them moving forward and relax. It's a beautiful way to live. It's less stress. It's less impact. It's a heck of a lot better than spinning plates or juggling. What I call the file cabinet of thoughts is that we're juggling or having to spin too many plates and that we're there's way too many things going on, and that none of that has to be true if we get our minds wired correctly and start thinking from a place of gratitude and expansion. The catch-all for today, one of the things that we're really going to look at that you get to consider today is alignment. And you're going to have the opportunity here. I want you to consider what alignment looks like when you're making personal decisions and when you're just considering yourself. In therapeutic worlds, you have internal family systems and a lot of parts work and parts dynamics and other things where you really can consider the many voices that you have in your being, the roles that you've played over life, the current roles that you're playing today, and it's breaking them down into parts. Well, that therapeutic process helps us visualize and see, and there's materials out there that help us really consider what that might look like to work with the many parts. But one of the touch points and reaches that we're going to make across from that personal sense of self and having internal alignment, how that translates to having alignment in other areas of life where you're working with others, and the value of alignment, and how right now, this day and this week and this month, by considering what you're aligned on and considering any potential lack of alignment, that if you would gain alignment could help you take something across the finish line and not have a reason or an excuse why it wasn't going to happen or didn't happen. Oftentimes, the catch point there is some form of lack of alignment. There's a part of you that just isn't on board with doing or not doing whatever it is you're saying. It's keeping you from succeeding. Same thing in a group or a company or a team. There's one person that keeps sabotaging, that's just not quite there, and it affects everybody. Used to be, people would say things like, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And in some team sports and in other team activities, that can be very true. That can be very true. One person can bring the entire team down. But at the same time, let's flip that on the other side. That means one person can also make all the difference in getting us across the finish line, right? That one person that just wasn't quite there, helping them make that next step. So that one part of you, that one person on the team, gaining alignment is important. And that's what you get to consider today in this show. Let's get to it now. Clarity of purpose. When you're talking about internal alignment, think about the many hats you wear. You might be a parent, you might be a CEO, or you're a business person. You have a role to play, and you're a partner. You're also a child, or not in the parent-child relationship. You might be in a family business, and you're also an uncle or a sister or brother. All of the hats and roles that you're playing in different people's lives are all something to gain alignment in, and it's important. Internally with yourself and with others, with all those hats you're wearing, each role may have competing priorities for you when you have a decision to make. So clarity of purpose helps you know why. It helps you really be considerate of, regardless of all those roles, what really matters most. That can help you make decisions faster, have less confusion and less clutter in your mind about, oh no, what about this? If you're standing strong in a value or in a higher level idea of who you are and what part you're playing, that can help you make decisions a lot faster. That's what alignment can do. There's reduced cognitive dissonance, right? There's the less internal conflict you have, and let's just set aside, breathe yourself out of that idea and just go into, what does it look and feel like when you have more peace and energy? I can have peace and energy even with competing priorities because I have alignment, right? So authenticity, no matter what role you're in, you can show up the same way. That you gain an immediate amount of trust with others. And over time, that builds a great deal of trust. People can learn to count on you. You will have a reputation for being dependable. Another is resilience. Aligned values helps you weather stress, right? In ambiguity and times of uncertainty, having that inner alignment of knowing what's really important and having a sense of values anchored deep has you and fully aligned with those values as you make those decisions faster can really help you be more resilient. That's the filter about thinking about this internally for yourself and how all of that works. But now, how do we move that across into business and into other ways? Because it's really an important thing to do is when we're moving forward through in an organization wanting to drive change, that we start gaining the why. One of the opportunities here, though, is that there's a lot of different ways to do this. And in change specifically, there can be top-down leadership-driven change. There can be bottom-up change where where the workers or someone that's actually doing the work is saying there's something needed and they want change. And there can also be change from inside an organization where anywhere in the organization, someone can see there's something that could be better or something that if they don't pay attention to could get worse and they're looking to influence something different. No matter where the change is coming from, alignment stays the same, and understanding how it works across all venues can also be a point of alignment that can actually accelerate the whole concept. And if you have that as a value culturally, it doesn't have to be a core value, but if you understand the value of that, it can be really life changing as far as being able to have speed of execution. So in top down alignment, the things you gain are you get this strategic focus and this incredible velocity. You get the speed of execution that is much different than if you don't. The idea of alignment is that when you need to make an independent decision and you have alignment, there's no one to check with. You might still want to run something by somebody, but you don't have to call a meeting and make sure everybody's okay and see whether or not this is going to work, because you know where you're going. You have your list of actions and you're clear of what's going to work. And when something comes up that needs to be made advantage of, if it's aligned with the vision or the understanding of where you're going, you'll be able to make faster decisions. And when the entire organization starts working that way, you move more fluidly. Same thing in working with yourself internally. You don't have to stop and think about, oh my gosh, what if? You run around trying to keep everybody happy doesn't always work as an individual. So that inner alignment, same thing, you get to make speed of decisions. So the other one is the cultural cohesion. You get this cohesiveness when you have this, shared vision and values, because and when you're having this top-down leadership change and you're driving that, you have less friction. When people in the organization go up and start talking to people, they'll get the same answers. When they don't understand and they're maybe confused or bitter or misunderstanding, and they bubble it up to talk to someone, and then they bubble it up to talk to someone else, and they'll get the same answers. And that can quickly calm things down and keep things better. The other one is you get an increase of employee engagement. No matter what happens when there's alignment, you get an increase of engagement. More people are on board and wanting to do what they're doing. The leaders are going to speak about it differently, and particularly if you're aligned and excited about where you're going and what you're doing. That can have a whole nother world. That's one of the reasons why we choose, when we're goal setting, to design your strengths. There's this idea of moving forward towards something you're passionate about, setting a goal that is also something you're passionate about, because it'll be more fun, you'll be more engaged, and then your psyche will naturally pull, your conscious unconscious communicate will naturally pull the win of what you've learned of efficiency for yourself into other areas. So same thing, when leaders are excited about where they're going and also driving change, and they're all giving the same answers, that's another level of increase, which is one of the reasons why you got to hear us talk and got to consider about gratitude and using that as a really positive forward energy, and how that accelerates everything you're doing in a positive way, because that really is, if you walk into being aligned from a sense of gratitude, it's much more powerful. That covers the idea of what happens when we're going from that top down, that leadership type of change and that leadership approach to gaining that alignment. What happens when it is bottom up or from within the organization? I keep looking over here at some of the research that I did, and when we're looking at innovation, one of the number one ways it pulled up studies on innovation, and one of the things that came up was when people within an organization have ideas and that's invited and welcomed, you can have an increase of innovation. So that's one area where if you have alignment, then innovation is acceptable, and there's a method and a path to do that you can really have a lot of it. But even so, when you're driving change from bottom up, one of the things you also naturally gain is innovation. So if you have a fragmented team that aren't quite sure of where they're going, you can make the decision, or you can bring me in to help you make the decision, or another professional that's good at that is an expert at change, and really look at that and make the decision whether or not you're going to start bottom up or top down. Eventually you do both anyway, and they meet in the middle. The pressure points that get created are sometimes where change is made, and then people get to talk about diamonds being made under pressure. So that's always fun. We have you also, with bottom up change, what you have in alignment is you have a greater sense of ownership, and it's nice when you have that. Now, same thing when you're working with your own internal parts. If I had an experience one time where I felt like there's a part of me that was always sabotaging things, and I even got to the point where I said, "Oh, that's my inner sabotage coming." Then it became the inner saboteur. Like I ended up just naturally, sarcastically, and I thought it was comical, named this part of me that was my saboteur. Now he's coming to get me. I think I had even given him a nickname. And I'm walking through a coaching process, and I'm learning. I paid a lot of money to learn how to improve my skills and become a better coach. And to do that, you go through some experiences. We were going through some experiences doing chair work, where I got to put a part of me in a chair and talk to it, and I put my saboteur in there. It's the one. It's the part of me I knew the most, because I seemed to bump into him a lot. And you know what I learned? He got a full repurposing into who he really thinks he is, because what I found is that I wasn't sabotaging myself. I was protecting myself. There was a part of me that says, you're not ready for what you're wanting to do. I'm protecting you from failure. I'm protecting you from feeling crushed. I'm protecting you from, like, you're not ready. So I was wanting to move forward, and call it God within, call it still small inner voice, I was calling it a saboteur at the time. But what was really happening was the greatest part of me, the champion for me, was saying, no. We're getting there, but we're going to do these things first. And I was told growing up a lot that I like to do things the hard way. And, my dad would constantly say, boy, you get it done. You always get it done, but you love doing things the hard way. And that became a construct that I was believing in, which included me having someone that sabotaged. And what was happening was I was jumping a little bit too far ahead. And my dad never said, hey, I think you're jumping 3 goals ahead of yourself. And if you'd stop and take your time, it might have just been a thing of impatience. But I'll tell you one thing it was for sure, is it was a lack of alignment. I knew where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And I didn't have the carved out paths that were clearly the best way to get there. I had a belief that working hard was a value, that if I worked hard, it was more valuable. And therefore, I picked a path that was challenging and difficult to get to. You don't have to do that. You can find a path that has ease and effortlessness. And imagine if the rule was not no pain, no gain. That works for a muscle, but does it work for forward movement towards a goal? It doesn't have to. You can change that to anything you want. No joy, no gain. Back to this idea of this bottom-up alignment, you gain this sense of ownership, and that brings a great deal of sustainability, right? When you have people in the organization or parts of yourself that have really bought into where you're going, you can sustain forward movement and change a lot longer, because everyone's bought in. And they've taken pride in what they're doing. Ultimately, your entire environment internally or in an organization also then develops a great deal of trust and belief of what everyone's doing. And that level of trust becomes really valuable, because people really lean into what they trust. It's safe. And there's no other reasons not to just jump in and do it. Really quick recap on this, right? You get, with shared vision and values, you get, and communication and transparency, you get empathy and listening, and you get prioritization and trade-offs. Those are 4 key factors to consider when it comes to achieving alignment. Let's go back into that. The shared vision and values, and I'm looking at some of the research that we had done, and it's, alignment starts with clarity. You want to get the awareness you need. That's one of the reasons to choose between top down or bottom up, is gaining clarity on what's needed, getting data and information and knowing where you are now. What is your baseline to grow from? Then you'll know where best to start, right? where are we trying, what are we trying to achieve, where are we trying to get to, why is it important? All of those things are important. The next is internally, what's your personal compass saying? And organizationally, what's the mission and purpose? One of the number one reasons that you have teams inside of major organizations that aren't thriving is because the company, the organization, has a huge mission and vision and values. And unless it's a very cause-oriented place where most of the people that work there are really inspired by the same cause, you have departments and teams that don't feel connected to that because the values they have, maybe they're accounts receivable and accounts payable, and they are valuing something entirely different. And they're going after money. They're trying to shore up things, and there's a different level of there's a different conversation. There's this idea in some organizations where sales cringe when accounting needs to call a client because the accountant's just going to say, "Where's this check? Where's this we sent the invoice. Where's the money?" And that's not as customer friendly as maybe the salesperson wants. And it's missed that the salesperson sometimes can actually use that to their benefit. And that the accountant can actually use that to their benefit. The accountant can afford to be a little bit just more bland and matter of fact. And if someone's feathers are ruffled, that gives the salesperson or the person managing the account an opportunity to really shine and say, oh yeah, they're really good at what they do, and edify you as shine and edify. That's what alignment does. Otherwise it's, oh, why does that accountant do that? They suck. That's not alignment. And that's not a good picture that doesn't develop trust with the client. But when you say, oh my gosh, I'm sorry that happened, but they're great at their job and they keep us safe by making sure the bills are paid, because you and I don't want to have to stop working together over something like that. So good thing that this is escalating. They can take care of it. I'm sorry if that rubbed you the wrong way. I'll certainly share that was the experience. They don't mean for that, but man, they are great at what they do. And I'm grateful I have them. And, whatever. But now you're edifying, you're acknowledging, and you're aligned. And people can trust that. They can also understand, oh, I guess you got a point. We should have had that paid. But it's only a couple days late. Well, they're doing their job, and they're doing their job well. Then you have an opportunity to say, well, would you like us to put a clause in there that we only call after 5 days or whatever, blah, blah, blah. These are very small problems, but they deliver a point about the value of alignment. So the other thing is this communication and transparency, right? That we covered that a little bit there, but misalignment comes from poor communication. Having that alignment, you're able to all say the same thing. Over communicating the why and invite feedback. That's much better than over communicating the behaviors and reminding and nagging and griping. Either way, so doing it in a positive note from a place of alignment and reinforcing and reinvigorating and encouraging is a much better way to continue going with the why and inviting feedback. Empathy and listening. Alignment is not a forced item. Alignment's not, it's really fostered. It is empathetic. It's really listening and paying attention to people and learning where the fit is and helping people have the connection. So understanding those needs, fears, and motivations. You spend a lot of time in life delivering value, and you can talk about what value you deliver and what value you bring. The day you have alignment and connect that to what's actually being received and what the client or the person receiving actually benefits from what you're bringing, what you're adding, that is a beautiful day. And that's where, and that looking for those connection points allows us to actually consider how things are being received and what benefits are being made by what we deliver. Now there's no ill feelings in that situation. So prioritization and trade-offs, you can't do everything. Alignment means, choosing what matters most, and alignment means more people can cover the parts. If you have alignment, without alignment, you need narrow lane. You need one lane, you need to focus in that lane, and you need to micromanage it all the way. When everyone's aligned, you can have many lanes with all different things happening, ending up at the same result. That's leverage. Now you're leveraging the behaviors of people, and that you can have many people doing many things all pushing in the same direction. That may seem like a grind with if you look at each specific role thinking, well, that doesn't help and that doesn't help. But when you all get to the end, without this, what would have happened? And without that, you have boom, you have immediate, fast, rapid growth. That's how hockey stick growth happens. Requires courage to say no to the things that you know that don't fit. But if you're in, it's most important with a top-down leadership and being clear about who you're not. The trade-off is you get there faster. You can always add something later, right? It's in a growth pattern. You may choose to grow something specifically and then know what you can add later. Retailers do that all the time, right? They're selling something, then they add a SKU, and that helps increase their sales. If every third, that's all the stuff in the grocery store that's right there up in front of you. That helps them that's where they make the extra money, because you went there shopping for something, and now everyone's going to grab one or two of those items, or every third person is going to grab those items that they otherwise wouldn't have grabbed. Right? That's that idea of if you're the consumer, it requires discipline to say no. So there's alignment in a nutshell. How that alignment really sets you up for success. Think about all of where this has been guiding you, what spurred up in you as this discussion was happening, and think about what alignment can do for you in the consideration of what's left of this year to ensure that you've got all your goals hitting. Because when you hit Q4, when you hit the holiday season, you don't want to be, you want to know exactly where you're going. You don't want to be wondering what still needs to be done and trying to recreate that. It's never too late. And, so you can always still do that. But this is the time to really make sure, so that when you hit Q4 and it's holiday season, you can really be counting your blessings this year. You can know what you've accomplished, and you can already be in the tasks and in the behaviors of delivering the benefit of your life coming into the next year, so that the next year you hit the ground running. And that's a standard operating procedure we do at the end of every year. Is we end the year while we start the next year while ending the year we're in. So that's leveraging our behaviors forward, and that's how we set goals, and that's how we envision, and that's how we move forward. So notice you're getting layers. You've got the gratitude, you've got the alignment. We're just adding layers for you to have the success you're looking for in 2025. And a powerful entrance into 2026, so that you have more ease and effortlessness in your life. That's it for today. Peace out.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. Please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.